Hi, my name is Sandra Brown. I graduated from Booker T. Washington High School in 1961 and went into a summer
He
program.
wants you to start over.
We could hear the whole entire time.
Oh,
The camera's not here. We just watching you from the sidelines.
okay,
All right, in three, we could hear the whole time. You're just having a conversation with your friend.
okay.
All right, cool.
Ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Sandra Brown. I graduated in 1961 from Booker T. Washington High School in Atlanta and went immediately into a summer program at Morris Brown College. Went to Morris Brown College from 1961 to 1964, came back later and graduated. Um, I've lived in Atlanta forever. I'm an Atlanta native, a Grady baby as they call it. I was a member of SNCC, joined SNCC late 1961, early 1962. Worked with them probably for 3 years, 2 or 3 years.
And what was it like in the SNCC office? Hold on one second. He's a perfectionist. Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Go
So tell
ahead.
us what it was like in the SNCC office, and just the organization in general.
Okay, I didn't do a lot in the office. We would meet up, and because I was on Morris Brown campus, I never met at the Quadrangle. They came from the Quadrangle to Morris Brown. The bridge at Morris Brown was the turning point. So what we did there is once you got to the bridge, it was decided that if you were willing to go ahead and go on, you did. If you couldn't go on, or if for some reason there were problems with whatever reason, you would turn around and go back. But the bridge was the final point to go. We went there, we went to marches, demonstrations, a bunch of stuff. We were students.
Silence.
Downtown Atlanta.
I know. And if you want to mention the mission of SNCC, you know, we all know the ultimate goal, but just, you know.
I don't even remember the mission,
I-
just to
no,
get
not-
things
not-
going.
Yeah,
Oh.
not word for word,
Mhm.
but just, you know, because we envision just tourists from all over the world and kids and students being able to see this that don't know anything about SNCC. So,
Okay.
you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
SNCC was Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I remember listening to things that were going on in other cities with other students. And then I heard Julian Bond and I think Mr. Lonnie King making a statement. And I thought, well, this is something I might want to get involved in. Because what happened is when you grew up, in my generation, when we grew up in a segregated Atlanta, or Jim Crow, as you want to call it, we didn't know any better, you know. We thought this was life. But to hear people saying that you don't have to live like this, that you are a first-class citizen, but you got to fight for it, you know, you built the country, you needed to be here, it made me want to do something, if not for me, for my future generations, for my child or children that I thought I would have eventually. But it was just something different, something to look forward to. I remember a sign at the fairgrounds in Atlanta that said, "Niggas and dogs are not allowed." And it was signed by the mayor, William Hartsfield, you know. He signed it, he didn't care. And then I remember when they finally decided to let black people go to the fair, it was on a Thursday. They would close the Atlanta Public Schools early, and it said, "Nigga and Dog Thursday." You know, we were called niggas constantly. And I had a problem with that. You know, my grandmama taught me that I was not a nigga, that a nigga was not a person. It was a personality or something different, you know. So this is not you. So when I had the opportunity to do something different. I wanted to help make a difference. It weren't for a name or to be in history books or whatever. It was just to make a difference for my people. And that's what I did. So I enjoyed my time there.
Tell us about the Heart of Atlanta Motel Picnics and the owner and your refusal to serve.
The Heart of Atlanta Motel was one of those places where we knew we were not allowed to go. The Pickrit and Lester Matters is a joke. But this man hired people to work in his cafeteria. And when we tried to demonstrate or when we tried to go in, he would have his people, his black people who were working there, beat us with looked like a baseball bat or whatever. He was determined that a black person would never ever enter his restaurant. But things changed because he was not the only white, influential white, as you might want to say, who did this. Ivan Allen, who was one of the mayors for in the 60s, you know, who was supposed to be one of the progressive mayors, said that black people would never live on Peyton Road. So he had city employees take heavy duty equipment and block off Peyton Road at what was then Gordon Road, because he said black people would never live there. You know, so it was not just one person that was low down, it was a bunch of them. But you had to change the mindset of all of these people. And in order to change the mindset, you had to be willing to just do whatever you had to do over and over again. You know, you couldn't just go do it one time and leave. We tried sitting at lunch counters. And you had to be programmed to sit at a lunch counter. You know, you could not just go sit at a lunch counter. They had to teach you. You know, it was like we were programmed on how to act, you know, because some of us, even though we were a part of this student nonviolent coordinating committee, people like me grew up in the projects, and you know, you're just gonna do so much. But I thank God that he allowed me to not show that side. You know, I was spit on in Richards, and I never could get the colored water and the white water, or the colored bathrooms and the white bathroom. I knew that I had to use the colored bathroom, but I couldn't deal with the water part. You know, how is the water colored? It still looks clear to me. So one of the highlights of being a part of SNCC was to be able, when Richards was finally integrated, to be able to drink out of whatever water fountain I wanted to drink out of, to be able to use whatever bathroom I wanted to use, and to actually be able to have dinner in the Magnolia Room, because we would not allow anywhere near the Magnolia Room. And even though now you have bad experience, but they go away. And now it's hard for me to realize that there's not a Richards department store downtown, because I always felt that as long as I lived, there was going to be a Richards department store downtown. And not only is there not a Richards department store, there's not even a Richards anymore. So those are the kind of things that you kind of look back on, and it's sad, even though you had to protest or demonstrate to be a part of it. And for instance, integration. To me, the worst thing that ever happened to black students was integration. In the city of Atlanta was integration, because we lost our identity. When I was in high school, all the way through school, elementary and high school, I never had a new textbook until I was a senior in high school. All of my textbooks had been used by white students at white schools. And you know, the name of the school was stamped on there, so you know where it came from. But we had educators who was determined to educate us. they would give you everything you wanted. You know, if you wanted to go to college or whatever, they was going to make sure you had what you needed to get in. You were going to be able to pass the exams. You were going to be able to do whatever. But with integration, all that changed because you had white parents who would not allow, especially a male or a black male student, to discipline their children. You know, so we lost it. And so integration has its good points and its bad points. But because of SNCC, we were able to kind of go over or move up. We made steps in elected officials, you know. There was just so many things that happened simply because of the student movement that never would have happened, I think, otherwise. You know, we would have still been walking around as second-class citizens. So I've never doubted or I never felt bad about what happened to me or what I did during that movement, you know, because it all has positive results. Sometimes I see it going back, or I see the fact that our young people don't really know, which to me is a problem. But I'm glad I was a member. I would, if I had to do it over again, I would, and that says a lot.
Let's talk about Warren Memorial Church meetings and
The student movement had lots of meetings at Warren Memorial. I was familiar with Warren Memorial in that I lived in the neighborhood. I grew up in that neighborhood. During the time I was a member of SNCC, I had moved from that neighborhood, but I could still come back to Warren Memorial for some of the meetings. I grew up in Mount Moriah Baptist Church, which is directly across the streets. We felt safe, you know, and lots of plans were made. And there were a lot of people at the meeting who during the 63 part was beginning to lean more towards Stokely Carmichael. You know, you was just about tired of being nice. But the movement still held its own, and we still were able to keep that nonviolent persona where we could still do things. We knew what we had to do, and we realized that in order to do it, we were still going to have to do it the way we started out doing it. We were not going to accomplish a whole lot by going from nonviolent to violent, even though a lot of people were getting tired, you know, and they were in a hurry. You know, it's taking too long. We need to do this now. Get it over with.
and that's the perfect segue. Were you there at Warren Memorial? I've had to go out there and say something to you. Were you there at Warren Memorial when Dr. King addressed the angry crowd because Black civic leaders, A.T. Walden and Reverend King, Daddy King, agreed to a slow, gradual desegregation, and the students were mad. We want it now. You know, Dr. Herschel Sullivan, Challoner were there, and Lonnie King were there, and they recall this incident where they actually had to call Dr. King, asked them to come and address and soothe the crowd that was mad because they didn't want to wait until, you know, the schools were integrated to integrate Riches and everywhere else. Do you remember that?
I was not there. I think that may have been in the early like 59, 60.
Yeah.
And I didn't join until late 61.
Okay, yes, it says March 61.
Okay, the quadrangle was at the old Atlanta University, which is Clark Atlanta University now, and it was like the meeting place for getting started. But what they did at the quadrangle, I was a student at Morris Brown. They marched from the quadrangle to Morris Brown. So I was not really at the quadrangle. I was at Morris Brown waiting on the bridge. And when you got to the bridge, it was a decisive point to where you decided that you were either going to be able to go all the way through, or you could support them from the quadrangle to the bridge. And if for some reason your family said no, or whatever your reason was, you had to turn around at that point. If you were going to go all the way, then you did at the bridge at Morris Brown. So I was never really coming from the quadrangle to Morris Brown. I always met them at Morris Brown.
And Rushmore, I understand Reverend Boone was just a staunch supporter.
He was, Reverend Boone was. And like I say, I went to school at Rush Memorial my early years, because when I was in school they didn't have kindergarten, so I had to go to Rush Memorial. But I was not at any of the meetings there. The group that I met with mostly had their meetings at Tabernacle Baptist Church, where Reverend Henry Dorsey was pastor. And we kind of met there and went on, because even though it was SNCC, there were like different locations, you know, and you have to realize that we didn't have automobiles back then. So we kind of went that way, that route.
Anything else you want to talk about as far as the impact of the Atlanta student movement and SNCC and the city too busy to hate?
Well, we don't want to talk about the city that's too busy to hate, because there were a lot of hating going on in this city. I think the main thing with the city so-called power structure is they were kind of afraid that if too many blacks were elected or too many blacks got position, their thing was going to go. They were not going to be the people that's it, you know. They were not going to be in control. But I think the thing that happened was you had a lot of people who still wanted to do it decent and in order, so to speak. So you had a lot of blacks who were eventually called Uncle Tom or whatever, because their goal was to work with the structure that was in place, whereas we were younger and we were ready to do some stuff. And when Stokely Carmichael came along and said, you know, he was tired, let's forget about the nonviolence, you know, if you got to kill some folks, let's go do this and do whatever. And a lot of us were really ready to buy into this. So we kind of needed our elders to try to keep us focused, because, you know, we were ready to burn this city down. I mean, seriously. I had just been spit on too many times. I had been called nigger too many times. And I was reaching that point where I was not going to be nonviolent anymore. You know, if you're going to hit me one more time, I'm going to hit you back. Or if you're going to spit in my face one more time, I'm going to spit back on you. And never will forget when we did a demonstration when we were going to, it was called First Baptist Church. Reverend Stanley weren't the pastor then, Roy McLean was pastor. And we were going to go to church, and they threw us down these steps, you know. I mean, it was like 40 steps. And they threw us down these steps. And there was this one guy who pushed me down the step. I broke my wrist. And to this day, I know what he looks like. And you know, that's one of those things where I'm not going to be nonviolent. But for that reason, I have never been inside the church, because I'm afraid I'll go in there and see him and hurt him. You know, it's just that simple. If I see him, I'm going to hurt him. So you have your good memories and your bad memories. Like I said, if I had to do it over again, I would. I was not doing it for name recognition or to be in the history books. I was doing it because I felt like it was my duty to make life in Atlanta better for my peers, for generations that had to come under me. I see now our regression, so to speak. I ride the bus, I ride the modern transportation, and I get so disgusted with these young people on MARTA, and I want to tell them sometimes, you know what, I went to jail so you could have this opportunity. But by the same token, I use the 5-point station. The people that MARTA have working in that facility can be some of the nastiest people in the world. They're either really, really nasty or really, really nice. And I keep thinking, I went to jail so you could have this position. Why can't you be decent? You don't have to be different to me, but the masses. So sometimes I wonder, did we do your generation a disservice by not really teaching you what we went through so that you can appreciate it? And you'd be surprised at the young people who don't have a clue about what they have or how they acquired it. So that's my main thing, is that if we can do anything to let the young people know how they reached the point to where they are now, so that they can be more cognizant of the fact that, it didn't come easy. And that would be my goal in life, is for that to happen.
Tell us about your experience going to jail. How did you feel? How did your family feel? How you were treated in jail?
Okay, I only went to jail in Atlanta, which was a good thing. I've heard some bad experiences about people who went to jail, even in DeKalb County. In Atlanta, it was fine. And during the times that I was there, it would be so many people there that half of the time, it would be like in one cell, you have 25, 30 people. So, you were not going to be there long. There was no way you could be there long. And we were treated decent in Atlanta, but like I say, I've heard some real serious tales from people who were in jail in other places. My family was divided. My mother worked for Bobby Jones, the golfer, and she was kind of wondering about her job. And this is the guy who was paying for all of her kids to get an education. So, but he actually made the statement to her that, if you need for me to do something, just let me know, I'll go do it. So that kind of quieted her down. My grandmama, who was probably born 100 years before her time, was all for it, like, baby, if this is what you got to do, go do it. So it was like that kind of division. But I didn't really have bad experiences in jail. It was like almost a party. We were there. I knew why I was there. I was there for a reason, and I wanted to accomplish that reason. And a lot of times you went to jail where you would have had a whole group of people going to jail today that's getting out tomorrow. And they needed somebody to fill the jails up as soon as they got out. So, you would go to be there so that once they got out, you could go in. Because the people in the jails needed to know, we're not playing. This thing is for real. So I didn't have any problems, bad problems. I didn't have any horror stories about jail. But there were people who did have a bunch of horror stories.
And movement lawyers? I know you didn't know them personally, but
Right, you didn't know them personally. I met them. And you don't meet them. You know who they are. You know when they're going to come in. They're going to come in, and you go to the little hearing that was almost a joke. And they would present your case, and, you would be... I don't ever think we ever really got fined. Because all I remember doing is going to the trial, going to the little trial hearing thing, and going home. I don't ever remember paying a fine. If there was a fine, somebody else paid it for you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes.